Hey guys, so today we're going to do 10.8 equations of circles. So first we'll start out with the standard equation of a circle. So just like we have standard equation for a line, we have like y equals mx plus b, right? And like m is the slope and b is the y-intercept, but we leave x and y in the equation. Similarly, we have equation of a circle. So when we have the equation of a circle, we'll always have an x and a y. And we have three parts basically that we need to remember. We have an x coordinate for the center, a y coordinate for the center, and then we have the radius. Those are the three things. So here it is. I'll just highlight the whole thing. So we use h and k for center. Next year in Algebra 2, we'll actually, when we do parabolas and ellipses and other what we call conic sections, h and k are frequently referred to as the center or vertex. And then the radius, we know we're going to use r. Now, if you actually think about what the radius is the segment that goes from the center to one point on the circle. So if I think about, okay, well, what's the length of this? What's the length of that radius? So if we were to use the distance formula, right, we would have, maybe say this would be x2 and this would be x1. So we would have x minus h squared plus, and then this would be y1, and then this would be y2. And then we'd have y minus k squared. And then what would happen if we just squared both sides? We would get the above equation. Okay. So really, the equation of a circle is pretty much distance formula, but we're squaring the distance. We're squaring the radius. So we want to write an equation for each circle described below. So the center is at the origin. So that means h is 0 and k is 0. And we have the radius. So it would be x minus 0 squared plus y minus 0 squared equals 5 squared. So we're just going to write that as x squared plus y squared equals 25. Next one, we have h is -1, k is 3, and the radius is the square root of 11. So we have x minus -1, so that's going to be plus 1 squared, plus y minus k, so that's y minus 3 squared, equals the square root of 11 squared. So we'll just rewrite this x plus 1 squared plus y minus 3 squared. The square root of 11 squared just becomes 11. So the square root and the square cancel. Okay, next one we have the center. So center is h is -2 and k is 4. And this time it passes through a point -6, 7. So what we're missing is the radius, right? So we don't know what the radius is. So remember, what's our formula? This is our formula. And the -6 and the 7 can just represent, remember up here, right? We had x and y represent a point on the circle. So if I say this is x and 7 is y, I can plug in and figure out what r is. So I have -6 minus -2, because that's h, so that's going to be plus 2 squared. And then I have 7, which is y, minus 4, which is k squared, equals r squared. So -6 plus 2, so that's -4 squared, 16. 7 minus 4 is 3, squared is 9. I get 25. So I could take the square root, but I don't need to, because remember the formula is equal to r squared. So now I'm going to go back, and I'm just going to put in x minus h, so x minus -2, so that's x plus 2 squared, and then y minus 4 squared equals r squared, which we said was 25. Okay, next what we want to do is graph each equation. So we want to first identify what is the center. So the center here is 0, 0, because we don't have anything subtracted. And the radius is 4, right? Because it's going to be the square root. Remember, this is r squared. So let's identify the center. So we'll just put a C. And the radius is 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4 up. 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right. 4 down. And 4 to the left. And then I want to try to make a circle containing those 4 points. Next one, I have C is going to be 2, comma, -1. Basically, it's the opposite sign. So if it's a subtraction, that means it's going to be a positive. It's a plus, it's going to be a negative. And then R is going to be, remember this is R squared, so R is going to be 3, the square root of that. So first I'll start with the center. And then same thing. So from the center, I'm going to count 3 units. 1, 2, 3 up. 3 to the right. And then we're just going to connect them. And it's almost more difficult when you have the points to make that perfect circle. So just do your best. It's fine. As long as it goes through the 4 points, it's fine. Okay, so next, before we go on to the next part, I want to take a step back and review completing the square from algebra. All right, so completing the square, the reason we use this are for what we call perfect square trinomials. So things like x squared plus 6x plus 9. This is x plus 3 times x plus 3, or what we say, x plus 3 squared. Or let's say it's y plus 10x plus 25. That's y plus 5 times y plus 5, or y plus 5 squared. Okay, that's what we're going to be doing on the next section. So to complete the square, all right, first thing we're going to do, and so we're looking at the terms with just x. So we're going to take half of b, which is the coefficient of x, and then we're going to square the result, and then we're going to add the result to x squared plus bx. Okay, so let's find the value of c that makes each trinomial a perfect square. So again, b is -22. So if I take half of -22 would be -11. And then if I square -11, I get 121. So c would have to be 121. B. So I'm going to take half of 24. That's 12. And then I'm going to take that and square it. And I get 144. So C is 144. See if we can just do the next one in our head. And if you want, you can pause it here and then check your answers. So -18. So half of that is 9. Square it is 81. Here, half of 14 is 7, squared is 49. Now here, half of 9 would be 9 over 2. So when I square 9 over 2, I have to square the numerator and the denominator. So C is 81 over 4. Here, half of -3 halves is -3 fourths. And then I want to square -3 fourths. So I square the numerator and denominator, and it has to be positive. Notice all of these C values are going to be positive because no matter what, when you square, it's going to become a positive value. Okay, so why do we have all of that? Because we want to complete the square in order to write these equations in standard form. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. First thing, I want to take the x's, put them together, and then I want to take the y's. I'm going to put them, group those together, and then on the other side of the equation I'm going to add the constant. So I'm going to put the constant on the other side. Now I want to complete the square with each set of variables. So we are going to have x squared plus 4x. So I'm going to take half of 4, which is 2, square it, so I'm going to add 4. Now, notice how I had a plus 3 here? I can't just add 4 to one side of the equation. So I got to add 4 also to the right side of the equation. Next, I'm going to do the same thing with the y's. So I have y squared minus 6y. I take half of negative 6, which is negative 3, square it. I'm going to add 9. So I'm going to balance my equation. Again, whatever I add to the left side, I have to add to the right side. Now, why did we do that? Because this is a perfect square trinomial, and this is a perfect square trinomial. So we can put it in the form that we want in order to graph this. So this is x plus 2 times x plus 2, or x plus 2 squared. Plus, this would be y minus 3 times y minus 3, or y minus 3 squared. It's always going to be, this value right here, by the way, is always going to be half of b in the above trinomial. And what does it equal? So we have 3 plus 4 is 7, plus 9 is 16. So notice, this is now in standard form. So what do we need to do? We need to identify the center. So the center is going to be negative 2, positive 3. And the radius, since we have 16, that's r squared, the radius is 4. Now we're going to graph it. So we go to the left 2, up 3. That's our center. And this time we're going to go to the right 4, up 4, down 4, and to the left 4. Okay. Okay, last one. And if you want, you can try this one on your own, and then so pause it and see if you get the same answer as I did. Okay, so we get x squared minus 2x. Now the constant is on the right side already, so I'm just going to go and take half of negative 2, which is negative 1, square it, we get 1. And then we have y squared plus 4y, half of 4 squared. Oh, add the 1 to the right side. Half of 4 is 2, squared is 4. So I need to add a 1 and a 4 on the right side as well. So this is going to be x minus 1 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals, and then here we get 8 and 1, so we get 9. So the center is 1 comma negative 2, and the radius is 3. And now let's graph this, 1, negative 2. We're going to go up. So there's the center, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 3. And then we're going to graph the circle. All right. So for homework, you are going to do assignment 27, and this is going to be page 760, and it's going to be 13, 15, 17, 19, 20, 24, 25, 26, 35, 51, and 54. Okay, so I will see you next class.